Right, well, fortunately, the two previous speakers have done a lot for me. What I'm going to do is to talk about, so what do you do now? Having listened to all that, what are you going to do? One of the ways that you can be helped along that path is what kind of methodology you're going to use. Where are you going to put all this information? And I'm going to talk about a very specific methodology that's used to create innovative products and services, and it's called Jobs to be Done, and it's very well used. I guess some of the vendors, I've used it with libraries. I'm working with a software company at the moment using it. Some of you may well be familiar with this. So I put it, don't look at needs. I am going to talk about needs, but I think it will fit very well in what we've heard. It's about really looking at jobs to be done. So I guess some of you are already looking to implement a product or service. I'm talking to a lot of libraries who are either implementing a new discovery service or a new back-end system, or maybe you're a vendor or a publisher and you're looking to develop a product or service that is not based on EPUB now. You've already heard that that's not the way to go. So if you are, you've already been looking at what your customer, or I can't use the word customer in some universities, user, what are their needs? You'll be analysing that. And in fact, what we've heard is we've got a huge amount of grist to that mill already in this morning's session. So we know actually a lot from the two previous presentations about what needs are, if you like. And I thought this was just a kind of rather obvious statement, I know, from the Product Development Management Association, but think about, if you're a librarian, you think of yourself as a product developer. So what kind of products and services are you developing to meet the needs of Josh? Are you doing that? Should you be doing that? And so think of yourself, even if you're not, in technical terms, working for some company doing product development. If you're a librarian, you should also be doing product and of course, service development. And again, rather cliched and an obvious statement, but if that product or service is going to be successful, it's clearly got to meet a significant number of either unmet, and we've heard a lot of unmet needs today, haven't we? Josh, how are you going to meet Josh's unmet needs? So, and that's maybe some new needs as well. And where this fits in a kind of strategic, this is a diagram of how some of the strategy work that I do with people. Where this fits is, you see on that right-hand side, we've got customer needs. And the sweet spot, that red area, a baseball analogy, is where best to focus, whether you're a company or a library, to get the best result, is where customer needs intersect with your capabilities, where the competitors don't. So what you've seen from Josh's presentation is libraries have a lot of competitors. He's choosing to use the competition instead of the library. So one of the places that you can focus is what are your capabilities, so overlapping with customer needs that the competitors don't do. That's going to give you the best, if you like, return. That's where the strategic sweet spot. So let's now look at that intersection, that circle on the right, which is about customer needs. So we need to analyse customers' current potential, and again, in particular, this methodology is very good at uncovering needs that you didn't know about. This methodology was used, any of you remember now, it's a while ago, the flip camera, right? This was the biggest selling video camera for a while until it got annihilated by mobile phones. So the need it met was to create a simple video and upload it to YouTube instantly, which is why, of course, it's fallen foul of the mobile phone. So that was not a need that a typical Sony or high-spec video camera was meeting. They weren't addressing that need. They were too complicated. So somebody used this methodology and said, there's this huge potential unmet need. Let's make a video camera that's not especially good quality, but it's cheap, and you just plug it in and it gets your video onto YouTube. So this whole area of looking for unmet needs is interesting. The methodology, if you look up jobs to be done, if you Google it, the quote that's always used, and I think it actually goes back to the 1960s before this methodology was formally established, is, and actually it comes in several different forms, but the idea, people don't want a quarter-inch drills, they want quarter-inch holes, right? So this is a focus on ends, not means. And of course, what this also suggests is, well, you don't want a quarter-inch hole, you want whatever that quarter-inch hole is doing. So there's a sense in which jobs, which we'll be looking at in a moment, are kind of nested within one another, and there are sometimes one or two ultimate jobs to be done. And there's a number of, if you like, there's a whole hierarchy of jobs. So there's lots and lots of different jobs to be done that need analysing, and I'll go through a little process of how we do that. So what this means is that never once did Josh say, I really want a library discovery service, did he? So he doesn't want one. People don't even really want an e-book. They want what that does for them. They want to solve a job. So these are means to ends. They don't want a MOOC or a journal or an article. These are means to ends. Well, what are they? So what is it? Well, fortunately, several years ago, some very bright British young women established exactly, they solved the problem. And I thought they put it extremely well. You might remember the Spice Girls. So if you want my future, forget my past. And you know what they really, really want is zig zang ha, right? So however you interpret that, that's what they want. So I thought that was very prescient of them to be anticipating this conference and I thought that was a nice line, you know, don't go wasting my precious time, get your act together, right? But isn't that been the message of the previous two presentations? We've got to get, vendors and libraries got to get our act together. So the other notion here is that people hire products. You don't necessarily with money, but hire them in the sense of time and effort. So there's some effort involved to accomplish a task, and these are the jobs to be done. This is a quote from the guru of disruptive innovation. You may have heard of Clayton Christensen, where some of this methodology arrived is, again, you know, what are people actually trying to do? They're trying to get their assignment done. They're trying to succeed in this course, however that's achieved. And I thought it was interesting that an article in The Economist at the end of last year, this was a debate about the crisis, if you like, in US higher education. So students are spending less and less time on reading this stuff. So what Christensen says is that it seems as if companies are spending a lot of money helping students to do something that actually they've been trying not to do. So we've been meeting, if you like, the wrong jobs. We've been trying to address the wrong problems. And if that's what he was actually talking about, textbook companies in this instance. And interestingly, his solution to this was a site he imagined would be called CramCom, which would just be the revision stuff. And effectively, that's partly been solved. That's what MOOCs are trying to do in some senses. But I think libraries too have been spending a lot of time perhaps addressing. So what are these jobs then? And clearly this is a complex, there's a lot to this methodology. I'm just going to give you a quick teaser about how you might look at things in this particular context. So what is the problem that needs to be solved? I've got to do the assignment tomorrow. Who needs to solve it? Josh. In what particular circumstances? On the train with his tablet. All right, so you develop a kind of a series, a whole range of these problem statements. So what's the problem? Who's solving? And in particular circumstance. And I think it's the circumstance that we don't always pay enough attention to. So is your library discovery service actually going to help here? So we get together, we pull together these jobs. There's going to be a whole range of them. And then what we can use those is to try and pinpoint, so what's the opportunity? Think about this as opportunity. You're a librarian or you're a vendor trying to develop a new product or service. What's the fundamental problem? What objectives are being used to evaluate the solution? What barriers? What are the barriers we've heard about? Access, ease of use. What the first presentation was talking about, convenience. If it's not convenient, that's a huge barrier. Clearly, cost is a barrier. What solutions do people consider? They consider Wikipedia. They consider Inkling. There's a whole range of alternative solutions that people are looking at. So this is how we pinpoint what the opportunity lies for us. And then when you sit down with customers, this is just some of the questions, and there's a lot more to this, but this is some of the things that you can talk to them about. So what's the problem you're facing? And importantly, why do you care about this? Why is this an important problem? You can talk to staff or end users with the same kind of questions. And what's your current workflow now? How do you do that? What alternatives? We've talked about that. Why do you select the option you select? You've heard about why people select options they select. You've got lots of information this morning about why they choose alternative solutions. What do you like about the current option? What don't you like about it? So these are kind of fairly, if you like, obvious questions. What frustrates you when trying to solve this problem? You've had a lot of information about what's frustrating about existing solutions. So these are just a few of the kinds of questions that you can sit down with customers, end users, whatever you call them, and start to look at, so where's the opportunity? This is going to inform and enable you to develop something. The other thing you can do is prioritize this job. What this table simply does is really, if something's important and happens frequently and causes an enormous amount of frustration, that's a pretty important job that you need to be helping with. So you can score these, you can put them in, you might have 20 of these, you can score them together, and this will help you focus on where, if you like, the sweet spot, where are the real important jobs that you need to focus on. And just coming to the end now, finally, so that's been looking at how we look at this problem space, if you like, from thinking about it as jobs to be done and using all that information that we've heard this morning. But the other feature of this, which I think is very, very, very helpful, is have you got that information, think of a solution that you've got already, or what you can do with this information that you've got from jobs to be done is to imagine a solution. A lot of it is about workshopping, working together. So we've got this, somebody thought, well, what we need is something like this camera, this flip camera, to do this job. You sketch it out. You can have invented that within your institution, and then you can test that. Or you might be testing, how does my discovery service, how does my ebook platform, how is it meeting those jobs? So, what are those solutions' capabilities? What can it actually do? What barriers does it overcome? Does it overcome the convenience barrier? Does it overcome the cost barrier? Does it overcome the access barrier? And what objectives can it get done? Does it help? Does the solution that you're offering help the person on the train complete their assignment for tomorrow? How does it do that? So these are the ways that you can actually take some existing solutions or solutions that you're thinking up and test them through all that information that you've gathered about what are the important jobs to be done. In what circumstances will it be effective? It's not going to be necessarily effective in all circumstances, but really zone in and see where will it be affected. And say, well, then what you end up with is a solution aligned with the particular jobs that you've got done and that need to be done. And if you've got a set of very high priority jobs that are causing a lot of frustration, that are happening very frequently, and that the customers rate as very importantly, and you've got a solution aligned with that, that's a really good opportunity, isn't it? That's going to be an opportunity for a librarian to deliver a new product or services, or a vendor or whoever to do that. And ask, so who's going to I use that word hire, as you remember, not necessarily hiring it with money, but with time or an effort, or it may be with money. So you can start to analyse potential or real solutions against this framework. And finally, just something might point out why some products and services failing. Sometimes the jobs are just too loosely defined. You've got to be very precise on that. Or maybe it's just one or two steps and it leaves the person, you know, the real thing is much more large, much bigger and more complex. This is a common one. It's very easy, isn't it, to try and improve existing solutions. We'll bend the existing solution to try and make it suit. Maybe you really do need to start again. So a lot of the work I do with library management systems, they're getting scrapped, and new library services platforms are coming along because basically they no longer can do the jobs that need to be done. Obviously, the product doesn't get the job any better. It's going to fail if it's not meeting unmet needs or adding value. It's so easy to implement systems and services that really don't add any extra value, or it doesn't address the entire job. It may not get the job done a bit better, but not significantly better. So it doesn't really make any impact. And finally, clearly, this is all about, you know, this is that classic value proposition. So why are people going to use our products and services instead of the alternatives? And the reality is people are using the alternatives. You have to figure out, can you add competing value to that? There's more about that on my website. So that's my gallop through. Yeah, we can perhaps take some questions.